Also, for any of you that are watching this on video and y'all have anything to say about my appearance on this episode, y'all have seen worse. Shut your mouth. No, but I want to jump straight into like the first question, and immediately, like, it's a bit of a crass question, but it's an honest question. Did you want to be a mom?
Some people have like this fairy tale ideas of what a wedding look like, a marriage looks like.
Did you have
family? I know I did not have that.
Okay, so I'm not the only one. I've never had that.
No, I didn't have that, but it's just I think it's more like it's the culture. It's like when you get married. Of course, as a Christian, I'm a Christian by the way.
Yeah.
It's expected, to reproduce, to recreate.
Mm-hmm. Because, I mean, you can't deny that, to be honest, and this is really taboo and controversial, but a lot of people just become parents, like, because it was just something that was socially and culturally, religiously, expected of them.
Sure.
So
but that's life, isn't it? That's, you have to kind of follow certain norms in culture.
Yeah.
So I would not say it's something, something wrong with that.
Right.
It's just,
Right.
Like if you ask me, do I have mom written on my head since I was a kid? Probably not.
Probably not.
I never play doll and the kind of thing. Pretend to become mother like that. I never had that.
A lot of people, they learn to become good parents either from having good parents that they made an example of, or from having bad parents that they also made a reverse example of. I mean, if you don't mind me asking, if this isn't too sensitive of a question, like, which one would you say you're more of?
Oh, I have great parents. They're responsible, right? They impart a lot of values, and I always tell people this. I think my biggest privilege for me, obviously, yes, the money is a privilege,
of course.
But I think a lot of the values that my parents taught me or handed down to me, I think they're also really, really interesting and very, very. It is a blessing to me because the mindset and everything. I think it's really a blessing to me.
Yeah, that's one of the. I'm glad that people are starting to catch on with the. There's like this growing discourse on when it comes to like mental health and like parenting, like on social media, and people are starting to realize that there's a silent form of privilege that can't be bought with money.
Exactly.
And oftentimes, like, the biggest one that we take for granted is having supportive parents.
Yeah.
Which a lot of people do not have. I know a lot of people that have had to learn how to become good parents by making an example of what not to do based off of what their parents did to them.
But having said that, obviously, you do have to adjust because of times, right? Because of the age. You know what I mean?
Generational.
Of course. You mean you cannot just copy and paste basically what my parents did to what I'm doing right now to my kids as well.
Yeah. No, and that's like building up to the second question, like, what's one positive thing that your parents did that you are continuing on with how you raise your kids, and what's one negative thing that your parents did with you that you actively you're like, I'm not going to do this to my kids because my parents did that with me.
So I think two things, for the positive. I would say hard work. Like, don't take your privileges to be entitlement, and also to be impactful. Like, try to always see that, your privilege, your blessing should be a blessing to others as well. So those are two positive things. And I think the one that I would probably say I've changed it up a bit is the way communication is handled nowadays. I think I talk more with my children. I explain more to my children. I think this is what's happening also with Generation Z and Alpha, right? I mean, parents to Generation Z and Alpha. Because my kids are Generation Z and Alpha, so they need more clarification, more understanding, not just like, well, this is my way or the highway, but like, why am I telling you to do this? Like, more understanding.
Right.
Different from those days.
Right.
I mean, you're Generation Z?
I'm Gen Z. My mama's she's 63, so what does that make her?
Baby boomer.
Ay.
I'm Generation X.
Okay. Well, my mama's a baby boomer. Is that different from boomer? Like,
it's the same. It's the same.
Oh, it's
the same.
My mother's a boomer.
So more strict, more.
Oh yeah, you layer that on top of the fact that she's also Chinese Indonesian and like
Sure.
It's a lot. And
exactly.
So, yeah, I think with me, and by the way, like, you can. This is normally the way that we do this. Just in case you're not familiar with the Indah G show, is like, it's not necessarily an interview. An interview can take place within a discussion, so like we go back and forth.
Sure.
So I mean,
so
just
I
to
can
share.
also talk about you.
Oh yeah. No, feel free to. What I'm saying is,
so
feel
how
free
is
to
your
ask.
relationship with your mom?
Well, it all started when I. No, we're not gonna go there. No, but I think when it comes to parents, sure, there are the parents that are just like absolutely remarkable and like they're like. I like people might say like, oh yeah, no, my parents like were like the absolute best and like little to no wrong, right? Or like, and then some people are the opposite where they're like, no, my parents were like fucking horrible and like I hate them and all that type of stuff. I have a hunch that most people, like in general, most parents are just somewhere in the middle, right? Of like, there's the good, you take the good for the good and you see the bad and like you leave the bad.
And I think this is the thing, yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people always share this with me as well. I'm sure you probably heard this. Like, you don't know what the parents feel like until you become a parent yourself. Right? I don't know if you heard that before, that kind of common stuff.
Yeah, I just disagree with some of the way that people use that as an argument for certain things. Like, for example, like, well, you do not know, how dare you comment on like your parents that way or like, whatever, because, I mean, just wait until you one day become a parent and see how you like it. You know what I mean? Whereas well, but at the same time, it's like when you're talking about parenting, like it's not just exclusively the experience of the parents, it's also the experience of children. And all of us have had an experience of being a child to a parent. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think the way I look at it is this, nobody is perfect, right? Yeah. My parents are not perfect. I'm also not perfect, right? But forgiving, I think, is also an important part of it here. Maybe there's some things back then that I probably disagree very much with my parents.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm sure because, again, like they're not perfect.
Yeah.
But there should be a forgiving on my side, knowing that they also do a lot of good things. That's, encompassing the, the so-called unpleasant things, for example.
Yeah.
Right? And I hope that my child also will be like that to me. Because I know I messed up so much. Because with my first child.
Yeah.
Because first child, I was confused. I remember, this is what happened. What's it called? I just gave birth. It was a natural birth.
Yeah.
And I was so tired because I didn't do epidural. So it was like crazy. And she was a big baby. Yeah, she was like 53 centimeters and 3.8 kilograms. So that's a huge baby coming out of me, right? It's very painful. So I just wanted to rest. Like, oh my gosh, it's so painful, right?
Yeah.
And then the nurse came and, put her in the bassinet, in the baby bassinet, and just push it next to my bed. Like, and I was so confused. And I asked my husband, like, okay, what's next? I don't know what to do. I was so confused.
Right.
So with my first child, actually, I feel, to be honest, I feel kind of bad because I think there's a lot of trial and error with my first child because I really did not know. I mean, you can read books, you can hear a lot of stories from my sister. By the way, they already have kids by that time. But then I know that in practicality, I was very emotional.
Yeah.
I could not modulate my temper.
Yeah.
So I think it was not. I should if I had known now, I probably would have done a lot of things differently with her.
Right.
But I did apologize to her one day.
Right. And at the same time, like you can't help it because number one, like that was your first child, right? That was also your first time learning how to become a mom.
Yes.
That's your first time learning how to become a parent. You can read all the parenting books you want, but like the one thing that I hear from like a lot of my friends that have also become parents is like these books don't teach you fucking shit. They're like not. And
it's true.
Yeah, and it's true. And I think all parents, I think you would agree with this, that at some point you will fuck up.
Yeah.
But the goal is to fuck up in ways that does not scar them too big where they can't recover from it themselves.
That's why I think parents also need to know how to say sorry to children. In Asian culture, it's not something that people always want to say. Don't ever, show your vulnerability. Don't ever apologize to your children. Yeah. But I apologized to my daughter, my first daughter. I said I was sorry. I was not a good enough mother to you, and hope you will apologize. Forgive me as well.
It's just how old was your daughter when she first heard you say sorry and take accountability for your mistakes?
I think she was 10 years old.
Wow. See, I had to wait. How many? 20. I want to say 21 years. And my mother never said sorry, but one time she fucked up so big time and like I was exploding everywhere and like that was the first time I've ever heard her say sorry. And like that was, and then the first thing that I thought to myself was like I had to wait like over 20 years, like 20 or like 21 years to finally
but do
hear
you forgive
my mother.
her?
Now see, that's the thing, like you said the word forgive. I don't know if forgive is the word. I don't even know. Well, to some extent, I don't even know what it means to forgive. But I don't know if forgiving is the word. There are things that I feel like maybe not forgive. Or what is it called when you're like, okay, yeah, you're terrible because of this, but at the same time, and without looking past that, because I still think that you need to be held accountable for your shitty behavior. But I'm grateful for all of the good things like this. Like, I don't know what that's called. That's me with my mom.
Acceptance, maybe.
I guess like reconciliation.
Reconciliation.
Right, and just like the understanding of just like, yeah, my mom, like just like all of us, like are flawed, right? And again, like to answer like my own question of like learning how to become a good parent from having a good one or like having a bad one. I mean, with my mom, like I take the good for the good and the bad for the bad. One good thing about my mom, she is the most pragmatic person that I know. Do you want to know why she named me Indah?
Because she wants you to be beautiful?
No.
Why?
Because I live in Pondok Indah.
Oh, wow.
No, I'm serious.
So aren't you glad that your name's not Pondok though?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
It could have been Pondoji, right?
If she had went with Pondok, I'll kill myself. No, I can't market that type of name. No, but the story with
okay.
and I've never shared this before, but yeah, the reason why my mom named me Indah, everybody's like, oh yeah, because she wants you to be beautiful. No, it's because my mom, so she's like fresh off the boat Chinese, like grandma. Her mother was from China,
Oh, okay.
could not speak Indonesian. At that time, I was born 97. The laws were such that Chinese people, we weren't allowed to use our Chinese name, right? And so like it was also like the wave of like Chinese parents that are kind of like, okay, we want to assimilate our kids more to like the society here. Let's give them either like the widest like fucking name, like usually like biblical, right? Like give them the widest name, or like the most Indonesian name to make sure like they acclimatize. She went with the Indonesian version, but it had to be an Indonesian name that was easy enough for one, grandma to pronounce, two, grandma to remember. And so she was like, we live in Pondok Indah. Grandma will remember that. Let's go with Indah.
That's funny.
And then grandma died a year later, so she named me Indah for nothing.
No, it's a beautiful name. Come on.
It's a beautiful name. Like now I rock with it, right? But as in like the story of like...
Yeah, that's very pragmatic.
Very pragmatic, right? So...
You know, I grew up in Simprok, so I'm glad my parents didn't call me Simprok, you know what I mean?
Oh my God. Yeah, no, but that's
Wow.
how I was named Indah, and my mother is just like, she's just crazy pragmatic.
Oh, okay. Very interesting.
And if I'm allowed to share one more like really cool thing about my mother, since I'm number one, I think she's watching this, so I'm trying to like be on her good grace here. But one really cool thing about my mom as well, like just like how pragmatic she is. Like I'll give you the simplified version of this. One day she walked up to me and she was like, like instead of teaching all of these like values of like how yes, men and boys should also partake in like domestic work and like help out with the household and like rear the child, like all of those, like she agrees with. But she was like, the way that you go about like sending out that message though, who gives a shit about how the woman feels? Tell them that if these men and boys do not learn how to take care of their household and know how to rear their children, well, mostly take care of the household. Yeah. That was what she was referring to. If these men and boys don't learn how to take care of their household, they're gonna be poor. How are they? Mereka gimana kalau nggak bisa ngurusin rumah itu, mau ngurusin bisnis?
That's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
And to be honest,
that's very important.
Yeah, and that's very important. And you know what? She's not wrong. She's not wrong. But I'm like, hey, you know what? That's not a bad. That's not a bad way to like.
Yes.
Right?
Agree.
Who gives a shit about like morals and values and all that? I'm like, actually,
that's true. That's true.
So she's super pragmatic, and I love that about her. And then the one bad thing, I mean, this one I give a little bit. I try to give this one a little bit more grace because, to be honest, this isn't unique to my mother. And I wonder like if perhaps like you had the same experience with your parents, because it's mostly correlated with generation.
Okay.
How she has a tendency of being very verbally and mentally abusive.
But what is mental abusive? Because nowadays, to be honest, right? Like the younger generations, they label everything toxic, red flag, or whatever. Like there's so many new terms in relationship: ghosting, breadcrumbing. That's what paper.
Yeah.
I don't know. Whatever. There's so many things right now.
Paper.
What's it called? The paper clip thing. Paper clipping. There's so many things now. I'm just reading all these things, right? For my TikTok contents. Like, what is going on? Like, so many things has to be categorized for something. It's not as simple as before. It's just, okay, good guy or bad guy? Good girl, bad girl. You know what I mean? So when you said just now, what did you say just the term? What did you?
Mentally and
mental abusive, right?
Verbally
Yeah.
abusive.
So what is that? Because for parent B to think, I'm not mental, I'm pragmatic, but you think it's mental abusive to you, right?
Oh yeah, it's like my mother scarred me because she didn't come up with a beautiful like sentimental story to like why she named me that way.
Right,
I get it. To answer your question, one of the things that one negative thing about my mom that I try to learn from is basically I look at her and I'm like, you need therapy. And to answer your question of like what constitutes as mentally abusive, I think the older generation, like my mother, because therapy, mental health was definitely not a thing. And so they don't learn, they're not cognizant and introspective of how like they have the tendency to, for example, gaslight, and how like I said earlier as well, like verbally abusive. I think that's like a very common trait with like the older generation of Asian parents especially, and how like when you're verbally abusive, like that harms your mental health, right? Like, and part of actually like the titling for today, I'm not gonna lie, is because, and this is a, I think, pretty common experience for a lot of Indonesian kids around my age, unfortunately, is like I hear the term Anak Durhaka thrown at me at least like once a week. You know what I mean? Because
so your content?
Yeah, well, basically without membuka aib terlalu banyak sih di sini. But yeah, over the simplest of things, like I'm not even joking if I don't answer her phone call even though I'm literally on set working. Right? And like I have to like hang up, for example, but like, you know, she interprets that as something like super like kamu kurang ajar sekali kayak gitu, like kamu anak durhaka, and like it's always like in my home, like this is me being like a little bit vulnerable, but also like making sure to like protect my mother a little bit, is that like I that term for a lot of kids like me gets thrown around so easily over the most minuscule shit that objectively does not warrant it. You know what I mean? And so, and that's a very common experience. And so something that, basically the overarching theme is that I learned from my mother that I should go to therapy. And like, there's a lot of shadow work that you got to do before you take on the decision to become a parent.
But do you think that maybe your mother's intentions are good, but the way they communicate probably is just not so appropriate?
That's her saving grace, because I acknowledge how she has good intentions, but she has the most annoying and some like best case annoying, worst case just like the meanest, most like inappropriate, most like abusive way of like going about it.
But you said, right, her mother came from China, right?
Yeah, fresh
So
off the boat.
don't you think that people from China are probably treated their children like that?
Oh yeah, no, I'm sure back then, like they probably, my mother's generation, like of kids growing up, they probably got whipped.
Yeah.
Like I never got caned.
Yeah.
Maybe once, but like but like.
So it kind of have, is what's it called? It's passed down to her.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you're familiar with the term generational trauma.
Yes.
Of how, and like there's the extent to which I question the extent to which I can blame my mom for the horrible things that she's done to me, and like likewise like the extent to which we all can blame our parents for the horrible things that they did to us, because our parents like were also in some ways victims of their own parents. And it just it just passes on.
Right.
So that's the nuance, I think.
Yeah.
And the maturity that comes with age, because I was not mature about any of this shit when I was like 19. Now that you're a parent and you have kids of your own, you have a family of your own, like well, first of all, like, are your parents still around?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're 70 years old. They're fine and healthy. Praise the Lord.
And like, how do they fit into like your picture? I suppose, like how, like the question is more so kind of like crassly put, like where are they? Who takes care of them? Like where do they live?
Oh, taking on my parents?
Yeah, your
parents.
Yeah,
because well, they're still my dad still works. My mom's still active in her church service and everything.
Oh, wow.
So I mean, physically, mentally, they're still well. And they live with my brother and his family in the same house. Yeah.
I always, if I may, I'm very curious to how. Part of it is because I grew up very westernized and like more acclimatized to Western culture, and like this is definitely the concept of like your parents living with their kids that are already married. Like that's definitely like a very Eastern like culture thing, right? That's
especially with the sons.
Really?
Yeah, of course.
Wait, yeah. So that's my question. Like, why? How does it work?
I don't know why. It's just a cultural thing. I don't know why.
So, like, how many siblings do you have?
I have so total 4. I'm the second one. So we have 3 girls and 1 boy, and my brother is the youngest. So he's like there's a huge gap between me and my brother.
So how did that conversation play out? Like the 4 of you just kind of like.
No, it's just decide. It's not me. It's not us deciding. Right? It's like our parents deciding. Okay, we're gonna live with the son. It's not decide. It's not us like, okay, we're throwing who wants my parents. Not like that at all. No, like that.
No. Oh, that's how it works. Like,
Yeah.
Like like y'all as parents.
Yeah, my dad already said, I'm gonna what's it called, John? When you get married, you stay with us.
Oh, so it's always to the son.
Yeah.
Is it because like you're a man, you're supposed to take care of?
I guess. But in reality, you know that, right? Like later on, one day when eventually become realistic, usually the daughters are going to be the one who's going to be more practical on a day-to-day taking care, right? One day when they're
Practically
mature.
speaking, like, yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah.
No, and also sometimes like I hear stories too of like it's the husband's, like, let's say if I have a husband, it's his parents, but because I'm the woman, I'm the one that's got to take care of his parents.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's
that
probably
also
true.
happens.
That's probably true. Yeah.
Yeah, like
But again, it's an Eastern culture, and it's quite common actually.
yeah, I've noticed, but I
Yeah.
always like wondered like how does that play
I
out?
don't know
right?
how it is, but that's how it is. It's
Right.
just understood. You don't argue about that.
Oh, it was something that was kind of like
Yeah, it's like you have children. It's understood. You don't need to like
interesting.
discuss this and that. You know what I mean?
Interesting, because like I'm very, the way that I grew up, like I guess like the bastardized way of putting it is I grew up like super whitewashed, so this was like never a thing. But also I'm an only child, right? So it's like, and that I have a more, I guess the dynamic between me and my mother, like we're more like individualistic like type of people. And so it's like with my mother, I don't know if this is gonna make me sound like an actual Anak Durhaka, but like with my mother, like I've established it with her, like once I get, like when I get married, like when I have a partner and I live with him, like I'm not living with you.
And she's okay with that?
I think that's interesting. Is she okay? She accepts it.
But she prefers you staying with her, yeah?
I actually don't know. I probably should have asked her. I probably should ask.
But let me just share with this, yeah. My grandmother, who recently passed away at the age of 93.
Condolences.
Yeah, thank you. She's always been an independent woman, and so she worked until she was 91 years old. And then COVID happened, so her condition kind of deteriorated, right? Many times my father would offer her, you know what, just stay with us, especially at this older time when she's like very frail. But she's so independent, she did not want to stay with my father.
Ngotot gitu ya.
Ngotot dia kayaknya, no, I want my independence. I like where my house is. I don't want to stay only, there's people here and there. She wants that setting. So I think it kind of also depends of that dynamic, right, between it could also be the daughter with the mother. I mean, it's not written on stone, basically.
Right. That being said, however, big clarification, like in the event that my mother, like if age takes a toll on her and like it really necessitates a physical caregiver, like I know I should be the one taking care of her. I mean, that's kind of the topic today, right? Like, I know I should be the one taking care of her. But, I mean, see, that's the thing. Like, I don't know. What if my circumstances in the future is that, like, what happens if I have a thriving career that's, like, just kind of, like taken off and, like, I'm pulled in all directions. And then what if I have a child that I also have to take care of, right?
But it's okay, right? I mean, you can still do both things, no?
I see.
Like, what I mean is, like, you can be a professional woman. Doesn't mean that you have to stop working and not. You can hire a caretaker to take care of your mother, no?
Isn't that like a look down upon thing here in Indonesian culture?
No.
Where,
I mean, like to a certain point when your mother, let's say, she's invalid and she cannot move and everything else, you're not gonna be able to help her physically as well, right?
That's true. There's a level of professional training.
Yes. You need the professional live-in nurses.
I see. Well, what about if it's in cases of like maybe
but okay,
not to
what
that
is
extent?
taboo? What is taboo for sure is you don't send your kids. I mean, you don't send your parents to the retirement homes. Yeah, Panti Jompo. No.
Panti Jompo, yeah,
that's a bit. There's still taboo here in Indonesia.
I want to know where you stand on that. That's like the bulk of today's conversation.
Yeah, pretty much. Probably no.
Probably
Yeah,
no.
no,
Like in
Panti
all
Jompo.
well, not in every circumstance for sure. Like there's certain.
What is the circumstance that you can possibly see where you cannot take care of your own parents? May I know? May I know?
Yes, menarik nih, because and like we're representing, number one, you're a parent and like from a different generation than me.
Yeah.
And like I'm not a parent, but the way that I'm analyzing it, the one thing, there's a statement from Menteri Sosial. From the Menteri Sosial. It's too long for me to read. I'm gonna put it up on screen. I'll put up the Indonesian version and the English version for y'all to read. But the one thing that I will agree with her statement is she said, saya tidak mau lagi ada seorang anak membuang orang tuanya padahal dia mampu merawatnya.
Mampu merawat.
Yeah, I think that's the kata kunci here.
Yeah.
Mampu merawatnya. See, in that scenario, because the only scenario where I see that a panti jompo, again, feel free to disagree with me on this one, where a panti jompo might be valid is when you financially do not afford to take care of them. Tapi panti jompo juga harus duit.
That's what I was going to say, right? You need money as well to go send panti jompo, right?
What if...
Okay, I would say one thing yang mungkin if you cannot take care of your mother or your father is if you're also physically or mentally unable.
That too. That for
But
sure.
mentally not because you're stressed or you're tired, yeah. But like really, really severely mentally, like yes,
yeah.
incapacitated.
Yeah. That is true.
Because financially, because okay, look, I serve in an area in Kapok, which is it's a very low end, low social economic status, right?
Yeah.
And one house can have like 12 people, multi generation, from the grandmother to the grandchildren. Right? Right. And even the so-called quote unquote poor, they also can still take care of their parents.
Actually, back up a little bit. Do you know what are the reasons why people are putting their parents in panti jompo?
I'm asking, that's why I'm saying why. I think because, okay, I know maybe sounds so, what's it called? Yeah, so general, but maybe people like it's burdened by having their parents who are old, who are incapable. So they're like, you know what? It's easier. It's more convenient because they have all the nursing facilities. They have friends, the same age. Maybe they can hang out and be happier.
Is it more expensive to put your parents in a panti jompo than to take care of them on your own?
It depends.
Well,
What kind of panti jompo, for example? There's a very expensive one, and there's also a very cheap one.
Yeah,
but you
that's
know
true.
that the care that they're gonna give there.
Oh yeah, it's reflected in the money that you pay.
Yeah. And so it depends on how do you want to take care of your parents when they live with you in your own house. Like when my grandmother was very sick, my father turned the whole room into like an ICU. Because he was able, right? And we have a hospital, so we can, have the equipments and things like that. But obviously, not everybody can do that.
Yeah.
Right? So again, it depends. It
Right.
depends what kind of service do you want to give.
Circumstances per circumstances. This is where the conversation gets interesting because like as the generation. There is a correlation between like the younger you are in terms of like generation, like so Gen Z, Gen Alpha, like the higher you are in terms of like personal liberty, notions of personal liberty and individualism, right? And so I think a scenario that I can definitely imagine is where, okay, well, I have a thriving career and like, I'm not willing to sort of like put that on the back burner, like to take care of my parent, whereby I know I could. Let's say under this scenario, I afford to send them to a panti jompo that's like I know is going to provide them good quality care. Like what would be the difference? Because in terms of quality, like it's very good quality, and like that's what I'm paying for. And also, some people might make the argument that well, as long as I pay for my parents to go to a good quality panti jompo where I know that they're going to get very well taken care of, like that's a form of me taking responsibility over my parents and their well-being.
Yeah.
And the argument, and this is very controversial, but deep down a lot of people I know, because I read Reddit all the time, people think this way of like, why should I, how thin can I stretch myself for the sake of my parents, and how much of myself like am I expected to give for my parents? And like, why should I, this idea of like, well, why should I put my life on pause for them when I, again, and this is very sensitive here, when I never asked to be born.
Yeah, that's
the argument, right?
That's a whole conversation that's really, really tough to say what is right and what is wrong.
Yeah, because morality is also subjective.
Exactly. Yeah, of course, you're not, you didn't ask to be born into this world, right? You cannot choose your parents, but it happened.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do about it? You see what I mean?
But also, like, the term balas budi, I think about that a lot, right?
Yeah. So, like what you said about, just like keep on talking about like how, maybe people are in the, thriving in the career. So they probably don't want to have this, this burden of their parents and everything. But but yet you have to understand the idea of saying that, where are your parents? And you say, panti jompo, even if it's the best, it already has a connotation, it's very negative.
Oh, yeah.
So actually it's better if they just stay in your house, then you hire, like say you can hire one live-in nurse or two live-in nurses. You just put in a room. It still sounds better in the public than a panti jompo, even though technically you might not even be there. You see what I mean? I know cases like that too. Like they could just put in a corner room somewhere.
Yeah.
But then, okay, they just go on with their lives.
Yeah.
But the connotation publicly for image-wise, that one's better.
See, pragmatic. Pragmatic. I like that.
I'm not saying. I'm not suggesting what, but I'm just saying.
Yeah.
It's also about public perception and image, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. Like there's a degree to which like you have to protect your good name as well.
In Asia, I was we talk about parenting here,
Right,
Indah, but one of the things that's also hard is the fellow moms. They're very harsh on each other. We are very harsh on each other. We judge accordingly. I mean, you went to GIS.
Yep.
Oh, I can tell you, GIS parents are very, very, quote unquote, intimidating to the point. You know that, really? Shaking, you're nodding your head, right? Correct, right? So sometimes there's also a lot of pressure, not from your parents or whatnot. It's also from your peers.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and of course, like we're humans, we're social creature. Like we live in a community, we care about what our community thinks of us to like various extents.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, that's true.
So just now we talk about first child.
Yeah.
You know, that's that pressure. Like, oh my gosh, they have to go to all these courses. They have to be this and this and this because not because of our parents. My parents never said anything about that. You know, my parents always just say, you make sure they have good spouses so they can be happy and comfortable. You know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
But not about like, oh, you have to go to Ivy League. You have to do piano and nothing like that. Yeah, but it's all from the peer pressure.
Yeah. See, I think, I wish I looked up data on this one. I guess I'll put it up on screen of like the bulk of the reason why people decide to put their parents in the panti jompo. Because if it's not the aforementioned one, like the one that I just said, of like how, well, because like, again, I want to take care of my parents, but it's like I'm not really like available, and like other things are more important. They put their parents as like second or third priority, right? If it's not that, there's also the more fucked up version. Okay, I don't know, like fucked up is subjective, but at the same time, to be honest, I understand. There are people that also put their parents in a panti jompo because it's like, I mean, shit, like you don't deserve me taking care of you.
Oh, that's a very toxic relationship, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and then it's like, and then I mean that becomes an entire debate and discussion of like morals and ethics, but also like of individual rights, right?
Yeah,
of like if
but that one's a bit hard because I think there's a trauma that needs to be to be explored
Right.
from the child side as well, right?
Right.
But there's also the thing, about financial burden. I know it's gonna be a lot of financial burden taking care of older people, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes there's also fights between the siblings. Like, why do I have to put the money out, and why don't you take care? Like everybody's just throwing one another, like.
Yeah. I've heard stories of that.
Yeah.
Of like the siblings, kind of like one sibling perhaps has to spend more on one parent than like the other, and
becomes there's infighting amongst them then, which is very unfortunate according to me. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And then what happens if it's a situation whereby I've read stories about this of like I put my parents in a home, and that's like the extent to which like I'm going to like take care of them because I honestly don't even view them as parents that are worthy of being taken care of. And to be honest, like this is really hard to say out loud, but I mean to some extent that there are parents that are just like not good parents, and then it's like are they deserving of such kind treatment from their children, right?
I don't know. I don't have that experience.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, I don't have that experience either. Like I have my contentions with my mother.
Right. But it's different from that what you
extent.
mentioned just now. Yeah.
No, but I have.
People who are like that.
Oh no, I went to college with kids that like the way that they like share stories of like what their dads did to them, or like how their moms treated them, like it gives you perspective, right? And it kind of gives you that sort of like not in a way, I'm not saying that because like their lives are shit that it makes me feel better about my life, but it's like that perspective of like, oh fuck, like my mom is really not that bad, you know what I mean? And it's like I hear stories from people where I'm just like, I'm so great. I come home and I feel like giving my mother a hug, you know what I mean? Because it's like, you know what, you're annoying, but I prefer this over anything else that I've ever heard, So even I can't relate to that, but I'm open to the idea, as in to say like I am able to exercise a limited capacity of empathy for people that have that type of relationship with their parents, where like I've heard people like that say like I can't wait for my dad to die. Oop, and that is it for the free portion of this episode. If you want access to the full episode with no ads, just for 18,000 rupias that will go towards supporting the show and all the people like Peter and Tito that work so hard to make all this happen, head on over to NOICE either on your mobile device app or web browser. Accepted payment methods include GoPay, QRIS, credit cards, and virtual accounts. See you there.